And good evening, everybody, and welcome to this special edition, once again, of the Mass Steel Podcast here with me, Charles Prodigy Richey. As you know, you can always catch me here every Mondays and Wednesdays here at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And right now, we got a good one in store for you right here as we are continuing following the post-draft, as we are in training camp right now, as Pittsburgh Steelers just had their week in training camp, as a matter of fact, this past weekend. And right now, I am thrilled and honored to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend of the Pittsburgh Steelers, legendary play-by-play announcer for over a quarter century. He is the second longest tenured announcer for the team, second behind the late Jack Fleming, who did it for 29 years. And he is also the voice of the Pitt Panthers. And right now, he is here to recap not only the Steelers offseason, but his thoughts on the draft. He's got a few notable charities we're going to get into a little bit later on. I'm talking about the one, the only, Bill Hillgrove. You can hear him on the Steelers radio network in Pittsburgh. He broadcasts alongside analyst Tunchokin. And, of course, on the sideline, you also have Craig Wolfley, who interacts with them during the games. And, of course, sideline reporter Missy Matthews. And, Bill, it was a pleasure having you on. I hope you had a great weekend and enjoying some of this nice spring weather. How you doing? Oh, no problem. It was, like I said, it was been a pleasure hearing you all these years and just get a chance to chat with you here. And as you know, it's been a lot of turnover, no doubt about this past offseason, as you can relate more specifically with the Steelers offseason. I mean, last year the theme was trying to get Ryan Shazier's replacement. It probably looks like he's not going to play again. He's still held that undetermined on getting back on the field in one shape or capacity or another. But speaking of which, as of this year, I mean, since they did not get that linebacker that they got, it finally seems like they found their man. We shall wait and see. Looks like he's got a lot of special football qualities in him. He's from a football family. And I just want to ask you real quickly, your thoughts on them trading up 10 spots this year to select Devin Bush, inside linebacker out of Michigan. What was going through your mind when you saw them trade up and get that selection? And what would you compare to with your all-time tenure with the Steelers organization?
Well, I think the last time they traded up that many spots, or almost that many spots, they got Greg Polamalu. So if that even comes close to the history that they created, I think they made a great pick. What they did was address a need, of course, inside linebacker speed. They didn't have it after. And also, I just think it took the pressure off the rest of the draft. Now they can pick and choose players at every round, regardless of position. And so, they got their offensive lineman. They got a defensive lineman. They got a tight end. They got a running back. And I think the running back, Snell out of Kentucky, is going to be a big factor because I don't think you want James Conner running between the tackles down after down after down. James is too talented to go between the tackles strictly. He's got skills. He's got that great spin move. He's got speed to the outside. And he's also a valuable factor in the passing game. So I think they just did a great job with the draft. And now we'll see how it goes moving forward. And I know there's been a lot said about the turmoil caused by first Le'Veon Bell's a holdout that was longer than the second act of Hamlet, but also the Antonio Brown thing. I remember the fight, great buddy Ryan. He called it a diva dump, and he once bragged that he traded a player for a six-pack, and he said it wasn't even cold. In other words, get him out of the locker room. And I think the Steelers have done that. They'll have a better locker room and I think a better chance of success.
Yeah, and speaking of which, too, I mean, you mentioned that they got rid of a lot of interesting characters this past year. And I can't say I blame them for guys trying to get their money. Obviously, it's a little bit of a toucher hand to pull teeth with when trying to get those long-term contracts, including like the guaranteed money, which a lot of people are striving for. But also, too, when people look back at this past season, they not only look at Mike Tomlin, but they also look at Kevin Colbert more particularly. He seems like he's taken a lot of heat from the fans. Maybe not so much from the offseason, but don't you find it a little bit interesting right now, including like a guy like Kevin Colbert, aside from Mike Tomlin, that they have not extended him yet because his contract expires next year after the 2020 draft, if not renewed. He's been one of the all-time winningest GMs in Steeler history, aside from Super Bowls.
I really think it's the Rudy style. They want to see it on the field. It didn't happen on the field last year. Mm-hmm. And so I think they put everything in a hold. And one thing I do know about how they adhere to a very strict policy, once the season starts, there's no negotiation. It includes front office, it includes players. And I think that's a great policy because it serves as a distraction. You know, I don't think players on the field who are trying to memorize the playbook, trying to take instruction, they don't need to deal with that off the field stuff. And I think that's what weighed on this team last year. And I really think the players, Steelers players in 2018, turned the page. They knew Le'Veon Bell's hand wasn't in the pile. And I think they just said, okay, Le'Veon, have a good life. And they moved forward. But unfortunately, you know, the national media almost made it a 3 or 4 times weekly update on where Le'Veon Bell is. And meanwhile, in their minds, he was history. So that's the difference between the media perception and the player's perception. In the case of Antonio Brown, hardworking, first one there, last one to leave, but very selfish. And I really think, and I have a pretty good knowledge of the situation. Somebody who watched every bit of film this year said that 30% of the time Antonio would break or bend routes. So when Ben was pulling that ball down, it wasn't a pump fake. Number 84 wasn't where he expected him to be. And I just think that that's all going to clear this clubhouse, and I really think it's going to augur well for next year.
Yeah, and I understand there's certain things like you want to do from a character standpoint, but let's be honest too. Also, in the next 2 years, you also got to remember one thing, and I asked a lot of people this over the last 6 months or so. The CBA, a lot of players in the league, and I think it's going to be a dogfight trying to get guaranteed money pushed through in the league. And that's been one of the things a lot of players have been fired for. And the way I look at it is like having like guaranteed money is almost like trying to get like your pension, your 401k, your security money just for long term, because a lot of guys don't last. So with that being said, and that thought from what you just heard me on, do you feel like this is something the Steelers need to maybe want to like be a little bit more cognizant of? Let's just say if it did get approved and they know this, like how they do stuff with the quarterback, where it's pretty much the quarterback, they'll guarantee maybe pass the first year, take a receiver's money, his salary, and convert it to a signing bonus. Do you think that's something that could haunt them in the long run, and players would look at, well, it's like, you know, we put our butts on the line, but you're not taking care of us from not just an organizational standpoint, but us as players. Do you have any concerns with that down the line?
Well, there will always be a point of contention, of course. Put up the comparison between the NFL and Major League Baseball. And let's say in the last 15 years. Yeah. On an average, there were 5 or 4 guaranteed contracts in the NFL, where most or almost all of baseball's contracts were guaranteed. And I think baseball finally is wising up. And you'll see it, and you're already seeing it this year. Yeah. Where, okay, I understand, the Washington Nationals and Bryce Harper going to Philly and getting the big contract, and the guy Trout. Yeah, hey, they put people in the seats. But a shortstop who hits 253 and doubles his salary in arbitration, that drags the game down. And I think what you're seeing now, you're seeing a lot of this Billy Beanball in all of baseball, where, except for the stars, most of the innings pitched and most of the at-bats are going to kids between 20 and 25. And I think that's the way of the future. Finally, baseball woke up. And the NFL's kind of had it, right all along. So it's going to be an interesting battle, and let's see who wins.
Once again, we are being joined by Steelers' long-tenured play-by-play announcer, Bill Hillgrove. You can catch Steelers radio games on WDVE FM 102.5 and WBGG AM 970. We are recapping the offseason and the draft right here on the Mets Steel podcast. But also, too, that was some great points you brought up, too. And let's also move along, too. I know he's had like a little bit of an interesting look by the fans and put under the scope big time. But for obvious reasons, the Steelers, the way I look at it, they held on to this guy, in my opinion. And I'm just wondering, how much do you feel like Colbert wanted to extend Ben Roethlisberger to another 2 more years? Do you think there's just a little bit more hesitation from your point of view, seeing guys like maybe like a Joshua Dobbs or a Mason Rudolph at that time were to come after this season, if he wasn't extended, that they'd have a little bit of struggling working with those receivers? Why not have a guy that could still play and could still keep the car in cruise control, so to speak?
I like to deal with patience. If you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, and believe me, that is,
Yeah.
the great ones play their best ball after the age of 30. And he's in it right now, that period of time where the game is slow to him. When he gets the snap, he sees things that rookie quarterbacks have no concept of. And I just think that you have to take advantage of that. And I think, they're doing it prudently. One thing about the Steelers, and I started doing the games in 94.
Right.
Richey came in 93. I really believe that they've handled free agency as well as anybody in that league. I can remember 2 big mistakes that they made. Rod Woodson, and Rod wanted outside money for moving inside to safety, and Chad Brown, and, he went to Seattle. He went from a 3-4 where he excelled to a 4-3 where he didn't, and we didn't know Greg Lloyd was going to get hurt. Other than those 2 examples, I don't think the Steelers have made a major mistake in free agency.
Yeah, and you definitely have to give them that tip of cap. I mean, they are the miles standard, the way they handle free agency and offseason, and the way I've been summarizing, basically, especially the last couple of years, they're one of those types of organizations and people, in my opinion, no disrespect or pun intended, but it's like they like to dig for scraps. In other words, they'll find like role players, guys that could fit into the system for the plan that they have to contribute to what their efforts need to be, the way I see it.
And maybe I'm looking in a patronizing way to some other teams or other franchises, but I never get the feeling that a bad season is anything less than 8-8.
Yeah.
In some cities, they would love to see an 8-8 team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Steelers, you never expect a 3-12 or 5-11. It doesn't happen. And that I think is a testament to their ability to look at the picture realistically.
Not only that, too, but I'll also say it's also a compliment and a testament to the fans as well, too, because that shows you how much they care about their team and their product. I mean, 8-8 to them, I mean, even though it's not a losing record technically, to them, I guess, like not being in the playoffs, it feels like you have a little bit of a losing season. So you kind of tend to set the expectations just a little bit higher at certain points as well, in fairness.
As Mike Tomlin often says, the standard is the standard. That phrase is on the locker room and also in the facility when you walk in the front office. And they adhere to it.
Yeah.
And so as a result, the bar is high. And that puts everybody on maybe a hotter seat than they should be on. But that's the reality of the NFL. Win or go home.
And speaking of win or go home, too, and I know we talked about like changes throughout the offseason, too, especially most notably in like the coaching staff as well, assistant coaches. And if you were to choose like between like these 2 names real quick, and these, in my opinion, I may have like the most like expectations from the media and fans. We've already seen Mike Munchak. He went over to the Denver Broncos. He wants to be a little bit more closer to his family. So now you got Sean Sarrett, the new offensive line coach. A lot of people have been a little concerned is he going to keep that same momentum with the offensive line going, keep him on his feet as long as he's got an extension. That's going to be a key theme, keep him healthy. But then, too, the other guy who I'm looking at, too, on this team, I'm also looking at one of the defensive senior consultants, and especially the secondary, Terrell Austin, who's almost kind of looked in a way like almost like a co-head defensive coordinator alongside Keith Butler, who's been going back to his role more so with linebackers. So if you had to choose between the two, who would you look a little bit more for, Sean Serrett or Terrell Austin?
Well, Terrell Austin has the resume and the experience.
Yeah.
So I think it's an unfair comparison. But I will say this about Sean Serrett.
Yeah.
He's not Mike Munchak. We know that. But
right.
The Steelers are giving him a chance to become one. And that goes back to Dan Rooney's philosophy. And Dan, of course, I know his father was a great guy and a Hall of Famer, but, when it came to winning, the Steelers didn't start to win until Dan had more input. But I remember when I believe Bill Cowher retired, a former Steelers player went into Dan's office and said, "Why don't you hire Joe Green as your head coach?" And he said, "Let me tell you something, and let's look at history here. I hired Chuck Noll, no head coaching experience, but was with a great organization, the Baltimore Colts, under a great coach, Don Shula.
Yeah.
And we gave him time to become a head coach. I took Bill Cowher out of the Kansas City organization, no head coaching experience, a great assistant coach under Marty Schottenheimer, and I allowed him to become and learn how to be a great head coach. And the same happens to be true with Mike Tomlin. And I think that's the formula that's been so successful. You just tell me any organization in sports has had three head coaches in, since 1968? It's off the charts.
1969, as a matter of fact.
69, okay.
Yeah. And no doubt about it. I guess where he came from. I know he came from Don Shula's assistant coaching staff, which was Chuck. And of course, Bill Cowher, he came across with the legendary Marty Schottenheimer. But speaking of going back in the past, too, and I know you would appreciate this real quickly, and I know he's been passed away for so long, but if the late Myron Cope were alive today and he saw this year's draft, and especially with the selection of a guy like Devin Bush, how do you think he would phrase it right now in today's day and age amongst Steelers fans?
Joy and double joy. That's what he would have said.
Yeah.
He would have done cartwheels when they traded up to get Devin Bush. And then, they almost a second-round pick.
Yeah.
The return man and receiver from Toledo. And just go right down the line. He would be very approving. And, I miss him every day. I did 11 years with Myron in the Steelers booth, and I, almost by accident, we did one together in '83 for Pitt.
Yeah.
And he was not only a great broadcaster and knew what Steelers Nation was all about. He had the fabric of what the fan was feeling. He's the only guy who could have done the terrible towel. There's no other person in sports that could have sold that to a bunch of fans as well as he did it to the Steelers Nation.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, that was definitely a big-time contributor and somewhat of a game changer for the organization, especially in the midst when they were peaking, finally winning those championships after having so many losing seasons for over like 40 years at that point, 4 decades. I mean, basically, no doubt about it. But I also want to swing things over to real quickly. Just want to get your prediction real quickly on the season before we get to your other stuff real quick. What's your consensus, your gut feeling for this season, like record-wise right now? I mean, knowing that they got to start off, they got to face the AFC East this year and the NFC West. And not only that, they're going to be having 5 night games, and more particularly, which hardly ever happens in a long while, 2 whole Monday night football games, not 1, but 2 this year. So you're going to have 5 primetime games all together, and beginning with New England Patriots on the road Sunday night football, considering what you've seen from last year and the moves they made in the offseason, including the draft, what do you anticipate them right now as far as a finish? We had to make a prediction.
Until the Cleveland Browns can prove that they can win, I really think the Steelers are in charge of that division. I know some people are saying, "Oh, the Browns this and the Browns that." And the first-year coach, and a second-year running back, and a second-year quarterback, they still have to learn how to win.
Yeah.
And so I believe that the road to the AFC North comes through Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I believe that firmly, and I really think that, okay, you got Cleveland on the road to open the season. All right, that's a toughie. But you know what? You're on prime time. And look at the Steelers' record in prime time. And so I don't have a problem with that. I'd rather be in a primetime game than a 1 o'clock game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And they definitely made their damage control when also getting in a rhythm, especially on those night games you just alluded to real quickly. All right, cool. Well, glad to hear that. But I will say this in defense of Cleveland. I mean, no disrespect, and I'm just saying this from a competitive standpoint. I mean, at some point, you got to start turning some fortunes around. I mean, they've been for, one playoff appearance since they've been back in Cleveland, and already, believe it or not, 20 years since they returned back to resume their franchise operations after having to shut down for 3 seasons with getting screwed over and not finding a legitimate stadium and watch their team go over to a new franchise in the Ravens. But I'm just going to say, I'm still with you. I'm probably still the Steelers, but I'm not going to fall asleep on someone like the Browns or yet alone the defending AFC North Division champions, the Ravens, too, in that matter, trying to go in an offensive direction.
I really believe this. And this is a personal thing. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I grew up with Steelers fans.
Right.
It's like Billy Brown's going to pitch down and then run by the Steelers bench, throwing the football like here it is. And so I don't hate anybody in Baltimore. But there's some people in Cleveland I do not like, and I say it's good. Bring back the rivalry.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And rivalry is definitely good, not only for the competitiveness between the two organizations, but also for the league, too. And also, too, I want to just get ready to close you out. I know you mentioned real quick, I want to put a few shout-outs real quick with you. I know you're involved in quite a bit of stuff you do aside from the Steelers. I know you're with the Pitt Panthers football. You also do quite a bit of noble charities here with the National Museum of Broadcasting, the Pittsburgh Opera Board, and the Trafford Theatre Factory. And the Pittsburgh Opera Board, that's one I know you tend to like a little bit. You tend to seem to like a lot of jazz music. Tell me how much those hit home for you and how much you contribute for amongst your people or Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. How much those mean to you and what they're all about? If you could expand a little bit on those, please.
Really, I think we all have to give back. And
Yeah.
so that's my way of doing it. And notice none of those organizations you mentioned are sports related. And I think the message to young people is, as great as sports is, and it's been great to me, it's not the only part of my life. My wife is a classical voice teacher, so therefore the opera thing was very natural. National Museum of Broadcasting was invented in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and just go right down the line. And so, you got to give back. You got to be part of the community. And again, that's another thing the Rooneys have always stressed with their players and coaches.
No doubt about it. All right, Bill. Hey, well, I just want to say thank you so much for squeezing in the time here on the Metal Steel podcast. Like I told you before we started this conversation, it's truly been an honor to listen to you amongst radio. I listened to you for almost 10 seasons, being exposed to you, hearing you through the mobile streaming services, through the NFL radio play-by-play. You touch Craig Wolfley and Missy Matthews. You guys do a phenomenal job collectively. I just want to say thank you very much for the wonderful years of broadcast, and happy 25 years, by the way, for what you did, especially with the Steelers. It is a pleasure, and keep it up and keep it going.
Thank you, Charlie. And listen, let's do it again during the season. It's always more fun to win.
Oh, exactly. I definitely get me pumped up for games, and I don't know who better to think it. And real quick, just one last thing I want to ask you real quickly, and I know you said one of your favorite calls was to calling the game-winning Super Bowl 43 catch by San Antonio Holmes. If you had to choose one more outside that one that sticks out in your memory that you could just call it like it was just yesterday, what would be that other moment for you? And I have a highlight ready to mix down later on. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put that up later on. Bill, it was a pleasure, my man. Thank you so much. You're truly an utmost professional, and St. Pittsburgh, glad to have a person like you. And you take care, and best of luck to successful Reborn Again Steelers season this year in the 2019 campaign. Thank you so much, Bill. You too. You have a good one, sir. Bye-bye. All right, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was my pleasure. As you just heard it right there, I literally got goosebumps on me right now. But the one, the only, Bill Hillgrove, oh my gosh, it doesn't get. He has been with the Steelers broadcast family since 1994. He is the second longest tenured play-by-play employee for the organization. And just a phenomenal job he's did during the offseason. But anyway, let's get into some other Steelers news real quick here. Sure, like I said, you can catch them if you want to hear them on the radio. You could always, of course, listen for the NFL mobile app or from the TuneIn Radio app if you want to subscribe, pay a monthly fee. You can catch them out right there. I think it's about 100 for the whole year, but not doing much advertising the show, so don't take that from me. But you can hear them that way. But anyway, if you're in Pittsburgh, you can hear them off WDVE-FM 102.5 and their sister station, WPG-AM 970. And also, too, as I mentioned, we also got some more notable Steelers notes coming on as they sign some undrafted free agents going on in the offseason right now. But here, let's before we get to those, it was reported by Teresa Barley and even the Ian Rappaport of NFL Network confirmed it this morning. He can be followed at Rapsheet, capital R, capital S. Steelers have finally come to terms with Devin Bush to a 4-year deal, his rookie deal, with a 6-year option included. His contract is fully guaranteed at over $18.8 million. With fifth option, of course, that's him being top one first-round picks. Glad to see him get locked up for the moment as of right now. And also, according to Mike Garafolo, Steelers are signing wide receiver Johnny Holton, who was waived by the Eagles last week after 3 years on and off with the Raiders. And we'll see what he does this year as far as in the Steelers. Definitely use a little bit more depth in that position. I know they got Deontay Johnson. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he does as far as at special teams this year, as far as that goes. But yeah, he's definitely going to be one guy to keep an eye on. But in my opinion, I think one of the cool stories too, I don't know about you guys, but Justin Lane. I mean, him and his dad were Cleveland Brown fans growing up. Were expected to get drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Had his Cleveland Brown gear already, even in his home. And when they finally got drafted to the Steelers, of course, it was a gut shot, but they started replacing this stuff with Steeler gear, so they're starting to become Steeler fans in support. I don't know about you, Steeler Nation, but what do you think as far as this becoming a John Banaszak type of feel, where he came over to the Steelers in the late 70s? I think he won a pair of Super Bowls with them, with Mean Joe Green and Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, and all those guys. I mean, what do you guys think right there? Another Cleveland-Pittsburgh connection right there? I mean, he could be one of the top steals of this draft. I mean, let's not forget. Also, let's go into some other guys, as I mentioned, too. Let's go into the guys who they signed. The list includes the following. They've signed undrafted free agents. I'm talking about quarterback Devlin Hodges of Stanford, defensive tackle Greg Gilmore of LSU, defensive end Henry Mandu of Oregon, offensive lineman Damian Prince of Maryland, and D lineman Tuzar Skipper of Toledo. And I'm not going to lie to you, I think one of the guys that really stands out here the most, I mean, who I'm looking forward to seeing is Henry Mandu, who signed with the Saints last season. Of course, he got released when they had to make a decision to cut down to the 53-man roster. But one of the most notable things that stood out about him is a Tough Man Award that is presented to a player for his will to win, and that is senior year, I think it was more so given. Started 13 games, finished with 45 tackles, 6 for a loss, and 5 sacks. and a career high 8 tackles against Arizona, and another career high with 2 sacks against Hale. And I think that's one guy out of this group that's going to stand up a little bit more for me, in my opinion. I mean, you want a little bit more toughness on that position. Like I said, you got Cam Hayward, like I keep mentioning, these guys not going to necessarily keep having the gas move smoothly. You never know. But again, I really do believe right now you don't want to fall asleep on anyone as far as your depth is concerned. But I definitely feel like right there, what you got to do in situations like this, you cannot be blindsided by anything like that. And it was definitely an exciting offseason. It's been refreshed and just interesting to hear. It's awesome to hear from a guy like Bill Hillgrove. I mean, of course, he's going to be taking the Steelers' side as far as how they're moving on from star players. But like I said, I think it's a little bit of legitimate concern. But I mean, hey, if you got, like what the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then the counterpart, I would say that if it is broke, fix it. I mean, of course. And that's about it. But as far as cuts they made to the roster, they released linebacker Keon Adams, defensive end Jay Hayes, defensive tackle Chris Nelson, offensive lineman RJ Prince, quarterback Brogan Roback, and wide receiver Karan White. And that's about it. But like I said, I think if anything from the guys who they did sign on there, I'm really looking forward to this Henry Mondu. Let's see what he does right here. I like the toughness part of him. And then another guy who maybe don't want to fall asleep on in this year's draft, as far as signing the offseason, let's also take a look at a guy like Greg Gilmore. Call me a little bit biased for looking at defense, but when you really think about it too, a guy like Gilmore, in my opinion, who's a defensive tackle, like I said, you want to continue to maintain a secure, stable foundation in that defensive front. And especially your edge rushers. I think that's more important. I think they definitely patched some things up as far as inside linebacker position. And I don't know about you guys real quickly, but this is my last question I want to leave you guys with. Do you really feel like Mark Barron is going to be a bust for this year who got signed in the offseason? Again, feel free to tweet me your thoughts, and we're going to call this edition of the Man of Steel podcast to a close. And I just want to say once again, thank you so much to Bill Hillgrove for joining me on the Man of Steel podcast. Bill, I don't know if you're still listening out there. I'm sure you're tuning in somehow, but you've been an honor, my man. Just want to tip my cap to you. Happy 25 years with the Steel organization. And like I said, keep up the great work. You Tuck Jokin, who's analyst alongside Bill Hillgrove, and then Craig Wolfley, who are interacts with them on the field for on-field updates, and then there's silent reporter Missy Matthews. All right. Well, as I always leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I got it.